What is up, RotoGrinders? 2 hours nonstop NBA DFS conversation starts right now, taking y'all straight up the lock. Crunch time comes in at about 6:15, 6:20 or so. This is, of course, the $1 million show, the millionaire show between us, between the three of us. We're not going to disperse who did what, but 3 individual $1 million takedowns in the DFS streets. Returning champion, Squirrel Patrol. Squirrel, what's up? Happy Tuesday. How are things in your world?
Good, yeah. Good little slate last night. I was right on with the Jordan Poole thing. I was watching that Wizards game. I watched him just go berserk, and I had a bunch of Pat Connaughton because he was announced in the starting lineup.
Ooh,
and it's like my night was like I kind of knew I wasn't going to do well, but it was like nice watching my tournament teams come back. But it was like, man, what could have been?
What's a bunch of Pat Connaughton? Like 20%?
I think on DraftKings I was even higher because I think he's like 3,300 and he was announced in the starting lineup. And honestly, what really hurt me was that getting so much Connaughton like knocked out some Bobby Portis. So I was like maybe half the field on Bobby Portis, and that's really Connaughton like 3,300. I think he put up like 9 points on DK. Yeah. Like that's not terrible, but like what happened is I ended up like way under the field on Bobby Portis.
So about 45 less than Portis. By the way, the other thing we talked about last night, we'll talk about tonight's slate obviously in a second. We'll say hello to Chop. But remember we were talking about like the Keontae George like illness. And you never really know when a player is ill. There's no way to gauge. Like, is this guy going to give it a go? Was he fine? And now was he like just messed up yesterday? But like he gave it a go. He tried, played 5 minutes. It was a disaster. And then I think we lost like 3 players in that game. I think Bagley left that game at some point. And there was another player that kind of left in the middle. I think one of the Jasmine could not. The Jazz lost 2 guys in the middle of that game, so I can't think who the third one was.
I know Bagley went out late, and that'll be interesting to see like what we get for Sean Holmes in terms of pricing and stuff tomorrow. But yeah, the world of the Wizards. I don't recall like another guy going out, but it's definitely possible. Maybe Samanic or something, or Sensabaugh or Jizang.
I think it was Samanic, actually. I think he's the one that might have got injured or something happened to him. Let us know there in chat. Maybe I'm just making this up, but Hendricks, that's who it was. Mr. Gervis.
That's right.
I knew somebody else disappeared. We lost 3 players in the middle of that game, and it was already a fun game. And if you dodge those pieces, everybody else pretty much smashed. A lot of guys like the 5 and 6, 7K area had huge output there DFS wise. Some big scores. Chop, welcome to the show. Tuesday. Talking some basketball. How are things in Chop's world?
They could be better, Dean. They could be better. But we'll grind through the rest of this NBA season. Let's get it going, Dean. It's you're talking about last night. Well, I just I'm in cash, Dean. I'm in cash, but Noto told me in his article, he said play Patrick Beverley, but I had to get smart with it, and I played Higgins kid, and that bit me, Dean. But I still min cash, so I can't complain. Min cash in the NBA is like freaking striking gold these days.
You got to get the alerts though, Chop, because I was off of Beverly and I didn't think he was going to start, and then he ended up starting. And Higgins was a guy to go, this guy's interesting, and he wasn't starting, so I crossed him out. That's not always like the end all be all, but God, who was the guy that surprise started for in place of Higgins? That was pretty decent. He ended up
Banton.
That's who it was. Yeah, Banton, who was like put up like a 25 spot or so, played I think about 30 minutes or so. But yeah, I had it's always tricky. I think Kawhi, I had a really, really good lineup. Like everybody with the fire emojis, and Kawhi just you never really know when he's going to put up a stinker. He put up a stinker in terms of what he's his typical output. That was my best lineup. But you know what, Chop? It's DFS, which stands for Daily Fantasy Sports. We care about today, not yesterday, not tomorrow. We'll talk about Rashad Holmes tomorrow. I haven't even looked at it, but Squirrel. But tonight it's an 8-gamer. Lots of news we're waiting on. Lots of news has already dropped as well. Scotty Barnes out for the season, kind of a big deal. We don't know about Wembanyama. He's questionable on the road there. Battle of Texas, Chop. That is, yes, they're in Houston, right? San Antonio in Houston on the road. Charlotte's falling apart. Some of their fringe guys are getting more injured. We're probably never going to see LaMelo and Mark Williams again this season. Boston's got some questionable pieces. They tend to play games with the injury report, but it's an island game, so I don't think that's what's going on here necessarily. It is a TNT game also. And they're facing Cleveland, who's lost Donovan Mitchell. So, again, lots of stars not playing on this slate. Luka is questionable, and he seems to be legitimately questionable. but he plays through everything and not just – he doesn't give you that Keontae George outcome. He puts up like 95, 100 points when he's not feeling particularly well. He's priced up, but, fully justified. And for that reason, and we'll talk about the slate in a second, Squirrel, you had this idea, and I was thinking about it too earlier in the day, and I'm repackaging, but you wrote it before I said it. But yeah, the 7 o'clock game, there's just one 7 o'clock game just kind of sitting there. And there's a couple value pieces that we'll talk about it. Like Mitchell seems kind of sort of somewhat interesting with Charlotte being so thin, but maybe just getting away from that game and just waiting a half hour and, some news trickling on in because 7:30, I believe, has 6 games. 6 of the 8 games are exactly at 7:30. Luka plays 8:30. Maybe we get that Luka news in the 7 to 7:30 window. But that's kind of where I'm at as well. And also I get an extra half hour to kind of tinker around and, perfect my lineups and get them where I wanted to get them. And I'm not in a full on rush. But otherwise, feel free to give your thoughts on that, Squirrel. And just give me, your overall thoughts when it comes to the slate in general.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a big slate for a Tuesday. I write my Tuesday article. Wow, there's so many games here, so many injury, so much injury news. But yeah, I do think that 7 o'clock game is going to not be very popular. Like if I play anything from that game, it's probably going to be a game stack. And because we might need that extra half hour for news, where we've got so many games at 7:30, and then the games at 8 and 8:30. There's just one game each, but they each have pretty impactful injury news. So if we don't get anything leading into 7 o'clock, that 7 o'clock game is going to be probably off my radar a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it should be a fun slate in general. I mean, there are some really tricky injury situations, especially like with that 8 o'clock and 8:30 game. Because like the guys that are questionable are like Wembanyama and Luka, and it doesn't get much bigger than that. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
By the way, this is not relevant for tonight, but IT2, Isaiah Thomas, was signed by the Utah Jazz G League affiliates. So good for him. He was always a lot of fun to watch back in the day. Having Boogie, those Kings are a lot of fun. They weren't necessarily great as far as getting W's. They were fine, but they're just a watchability. I enjoyed watching those two play. I don't know. Does that mean there's an injury for Utah? I'm not sure what's going on there, but shout out to Isaiah Thomas, still grinding away. Chop, what do you got as far as? But I missed Maxey. Maxey midday downgrade. He's fully out. He has a concussion, I believe, for Philadelphia. Brooklyn, the only team in the back half of back-to-back. There are several teams in the front end. That's Orlando, Cleveland, Philly, Atlanta, and Chop's Rockets are playing in the front end of a back-to-back. Chop, what do you got? How do you feel about tonight's slate? What is your general overview before you can do the old game by game?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a slate, Dean. I'm just gonna wing it here, and now that you mention it, yeah, sure. Let's skip over the 6 o'clock game. I'm fine with that. That gives me 30 extra minutes to look at some college basketball lineup. So I'm on board with that. But I don't know. Maxey being ruled out nice and early, that kind of opened it up for me. I don't. The rest of it, Booker's going to be out. Yeah, we saw that. Probably going to be missing. Probably going to be really shorthanded for the Knicks. I can't see Jalen Brunson playing tonight.
I think he might. I think there's a chance. Puncher's chance.
I think the way he went down like he was shot.
It looked
last
bad.
Game. Yeah, he was grabbing and he went down like he was shot. Now, miraculously, it doesn't seem like it's a big long-term. Like, not calling him a wimp or calling him like a drama queen or anything like that. But it looked pretty bad, or he reacted really bad. So I got a feeling he'll be out tonight. But I think there's going to be plenty of value. You're just going to play whatever. You're just going to jam in Luka and play what you want.
We saw Miles McBride play 47 plus minutes off the bench, which I didn't check, but that's got to be a record, right? An all-time record, especially for a regulation game. Like you can't really beat that. I don't know what other scenario would beat that, but that's completely insane. By the way, I'm hopeful. I'm a little bit biased as far as my Brunson read because I have a ton of him in Underdog where I drafted him like 25th overall or 20th overall in the hopes that he does play with some boom bust potential upside, but he probably doesn't play. Hart is just going to play 40 plus more minutes again. He's now got 3 triple doubles, which is like 4th most in the league or 5th most in the league. He's tied with somebody else too, I believe. By the way, Chop, was I rude not asking you what was so troublesome? I didn't want to pry, I don't want to be rude not to ask, but I feel like you wanted me to ask, or should I have asked?
No, I wasn't trying to bring, and it's not it's I certainly wasn't trying to just, disclose my problems to everybody. But basically, there's this really nice condominium I would like to get as a vacation spot, Dean. But unfortunately, I would have to win another Millionaire Maker, and I just don't see that happening in today's landscape of DFS. So,
this is what's bumming you out?
Yeah, I'm really bummed about it. I really want that spot. It's a great fishing spot, but I'll figure it out, dude.
Small world. Is it in a particular? I guess is there a certain city destination out there? Maybe some people, somebody knows somebody, or
this one is in Galveston, Texas. It's a brand new condominium. It'll be opening up in the summer of 2025, and I wanted to get in on the ground floor, but unfortunately, it's not going to happen.
Don't you take like an annual fishing trip, right, with your buddies, or like the old school crew, or you have some sort of crew? Is that what we're talking about?
I do take an annual fishing trip. I do take an annual Galveston fishing trip back home. I do.
Is it weird that I know that? Like, should I know that, or is it? I don't know why.
Nah, we've done enough shows, and I've brought it up before, so yeah. I don't think it's very weird. But hey, wait a minute. I'm on a show with Squirrel, and this guy makes more money at DFS than anybody. Perhaps a little, long-term loan. We might be in business here.
Galveston?
Oh, would you like to do a timeshare, Squirrel? A little timeshare for you.
He's got 3 hours. We'll give you a free ticket to a Vegas show if you listen to a 4-hour presentation. Are you in for that?
Sure. That sounds great. How could I say no?
All right. Squirrel, any small water problems bothering you? What you want to bring up in the show, or you just want to talk a little bit of basketball? Anything in your mind?
No, it's my daughter's birthday tomorrow, so she'll be turning 8. So that's actually why I'm doing the Tuesday show, not doing the Wednesday. Gonna take her out for some dinner. So it's a big thing going on in Squirrel Land.
Happy birthday! What do you get an 8-year-old? What does an 8-year-old want?
A bunch of like American Girl stuff. That's the thing right now.
Is she a big Swift fan?
Big what?
Taylor Swift?
Oh, she likes Pink a little bit better than Taylor Swift, actually. Which
old school.
Yeah.
All right. TJ in chat letting us know that his left eye is bothering him. He's going to tough it out. Everybody's got a little. Tell us your small world problems in chat. There you go. By the way, before we get going, I do want to mention producer Devin's going to be going. We're going to on Tuesdays going forward. The plan is it's tournament Tuesday. You see how that works with iteration. We're going to run out a tournament. I think it's $5 to jump in there. You finish first in this tournament. You get yourself, the prize, standard prize, right? I think it's going to be first 5 get paid out. That's the way it's set up. That's what Devin set it up today. And if you get first, in addition to that, you get yourself the choice of 1 month free, a week free of RotoGrinders Premium. The bells, the whistles, the lineup HQ, all the articles. You get to read everything, scroll rights, everything, chop rights, all the expert survey stuff. Football, baseball, basketball, hockey, PGA, MMA, everything with the exception of NASCAR. Or we have new swag, and you can get yourself a sweet RotoGrinders t-shirt as well. Producer Devin, I believe he's dropping it right now, or he's already dropped it in the live stream chat channel, the same channel you went to yesterday to guess the movies we talked about. The live stream chat channel, sign up for the, let's see, it's not in there just yet. I assume Devin will be dropping it momentarily, but I think it's going to be limited to just 30. So this is why you get rewarded for jumping in the show early. You get yourself a chance, a 1 in 30 chance to win a week free of RG Premium. And just that's a regular contest as is, right? Regular $5 entry contest. That's it in chat. JD saying, I like the new hoodie. I don't think the hoodie is available, unfortunately, for a victory here, but you would get yourself a shirt, maybe a hat. I'm not sure if hats is in the conversation. But take that up with producer Devin. The link has just been dropped. Go ahead and jump in because spots are limited. Rad Dad Fanny Pack is asking where the contest is available. It is in this Discord, rotogrinders.com/Discord, live stream chat channel. That channel is free. Most channels are free. Okay. Anything else we should say here, Squirrel, before we fully dive in? As far as this slate, a lot of the stuff is still up in the air. I'm just kind of.
I'm ready to move on from Movie Monday. So.
Did not go. You did not enjoy. We're gonna make one more squirrel friendly next time you're on next Monday or so. We'll figure it out. But let's do it. Let's talk about the 7 o'clock game. We already kind of said we kind of poo-pooed it a little bit. but there are some plays for sure. Orlando, they're in Charlotte, 207.5 is the total. Another game where a team has a team total less than 100. Charlotte technically at 99.5. That is not appealing, but they will be without several bodies. No Cody Martin, no Ball, no Williams, no Seth Curry. Nick Richards is officially questionable as well. Orlando pretty healthy. The only person not playing tonight for them is Markelle Fultz. It is the front half of a back-to-back for them, so I presume that's what's going on here. They're going to play him tomorrow. Chop, Orlando, Charlotte, only 7 o'clock game in town. We're expecting Mann and Mitchich to play together, which we haven't seen a ton of. They've both been pretty good, but they've been kind of limiting each other. But with the absence of Curry and Martin, it looks like they're going to start together. So that's the I guess Mitchich is the one guy that's really popping. I just hope, is he the guy that's going to break the slate? I hope he's not, because I don't think I'm going to have a lot of them. At least that's the plan right now. What do we got, Chop, here as far as Charlotte and Orlando?
Yeah, Mitchich is the only guy who's going to be showing up in optimals from this game. And while I kind of liked him earlier, I did a quick revise on my survey and got rid of him. I don't want to play him tonight because I really don't want to play anybody from this game. And I think there's more, especially when Maxey got ruled out earlier, there's just more guys with more upside than him. So especially against Orlando, tough defense, number 2 defensive efficiency in the NBA. Charlotte's actually playing better defense, so it could be a sluggish game in general. Everybody's priced up appropriate for Orlando. So Mitchell was the only guy I was thinking about, and I'm not going to play him in the one lineup I'm running tonight. One lineup, the single entry. So I don't have that many spots for him, and he's not going to make it. So I'm out on this game. That's my summary.
We just got good timing. We just got an update as far as not just projections in lineup HQ. We got an update as far as ownership. So just a few minutes ago, as far as the ownership stuff, ownership wise in this game, like we mentioned, only one player in double digits. It's Mitchich on DK at 26%, which is a pretty healthy number. Probably somebody that's going to be, I would say probably, very likely somebody in your cash game pool. Otherwise, nobody getting more than 8%. Everybody else is basically getting crossed out. And Squirrel, you've already kind of stated your case earlier. Now, I know many times things can change from your article earlier today. And basketball, the news is fluid, but it sounds like you feel the same way. Orlando, Charlotte, mostly a cross-off. But what are we doing with Mitchich?
Yeah, I don't think Mitchich is worth the news that might come out later, right? Like if you're getting like Miles McBride or even Cameron Payne. Like, we don't know what's going to be going on with, Philadelphia exactly. Like, we kind of have a good idea that, Kyle Lowry is going to get a boost. But, we don't know if Cameron Payne's going to play or not. And if he does play, then maybe you want to play some Payne, maybe Cameron Payne versus Mitchell. I don't know. But then maybe if Payne's out, then, Kyle Lowry might be playing a lot, and you want to play some Lowry. Mitchell did start last game, and he was, kind of chalky on that slate, I think, a couple nights ago. And he was really busting until the last couple minutes of the game, where he seemed to he doubled his fantasy output. So and now his price has gone up. So he's the best guy on paper, and I don't even like him that much.
Okay, so we can move on. Richards, by the way, officially in. So that's I think that's good for our purposes if we're kind of avoid this game. I thought Grant Williams would be kind of interesting if Richards sat, but not that you can't play Williams, but a little bit less appealing there. We should just move on. The 7:30 cluster. A lot of games 7:30 that are worth a look. New Orleans at Toronto, 228.5 is a total. New Orleans 10-point favorite in Canada. Toronto is without their best player, with Scotty Barnes going down for the season. I believe he's done for the season. He's got a hand. He's done for the foreseeable future. And 2 other rotation players. Bruce Brown, he's got a knee. He's not playing. Pirtle has a finger, so he cannot play. And this is a tricky thing, Scroll. New Orleans is a good team, good pieces, good matchup here against Toronto. But they have a deep rotation, and nobody's injured. Nobody's hurt. So it's hard to get really excited about these New Orleans guys. And also the price is kind of adjusted where they should be. Zion was too cheap there for a while. He's still certainly playable in the pool. But, the price is kind of baked up a little bit. And Toronto is pretty thin, but also the matchup here versus New Orleans, pretty solid defense, of course. Kelly O is popping a little bit. And then quickly looks pretty solid. Trent is a fringe play, is okay. We saw Baji play a ton of minutes the other day. I don't know if that's kind kind of small sample goofiness, or that's going to be the way it's going to be going forward? I'm curious if you have a read on Agbaji and just the Raptors. You want to start with the Raptors, Squirrel? By all means, go for it, and feel free to pivot over to the Pels.
Yeah, because the Raptors have a bunch of injuries. Like guys just keep going down, and it's actually interesting. Like their defense was much worse recently when Jakob Poeltl was out for a stretch of games. I mean, it got worse when Siakam left, and I think Poeltl got injured around the same time, and like they had a miserable defense for a stretch of games. So it'll be interesting to see what happens now. Like Scotty Barnes is out, and Jakob Poeltl is going to be out as well. The New Orleans guys are like a little bit better priced on FanDuel. I don't mind a game stack of this game because like some of Kelly Olynyk, I wrote up as the guy, like he's playable on DraftKings, but he's really playable on FanDuel. Like he's one of the top center options.
Yeah.
And power forward eligible as well. That really helps him. And he's power forward eligible on both sides. But I was expecting not to get that much of him, and then I realized he's power forward eligible. And FanDuel really didn't like price him up as much as DraftKings. But yeah, I can get to some Agbaji as well. I think he's probably going to start for Scotty Barnes. Like I assume that's like just what's happening going forward. He's only 4,100 on FanDuel. And I think he was another guy that's like not that well priced on DraftKings. So I'll be getting a little bit more of this game probably on FanDuel than on DraftKings. And just, it'll be led by like Kelly Olynyk and Agbaji on FanDuel. The rest of the Toronto guys, like, yeah, you can always play some Emmanuel quickly, especially if you're maybe running it back as like some kind of big game stack with like Ingram or Zion Williamson or something. But really, it's the value pieces that stick out on FanDuel for Toronto.
Yeah, Agbaji, 31%. Well, let me see. Is that ownership accurate here in the starting lineup stuff? I'm seeing 4.8 on DK and 4.1 on FanDuel. You kind of talked about it. Whenever a player is cheaper or even like the same price on FanDuel, he's distinctly cheaper, 4.1. And also FanDuel's the tighter cap amongst the two. So, yeah, optimals are certainly going to push you onto Agbaji on FanDuel. That makes sense. Chop, what do you got as far as the Raptors? And feel free to jump over to New Orleans.
Yeah, Agbaji started last game and played 33 minutes and is still under 5K. I think he's a fine piece and probably not much ownership at all. I don't think we project him very much right now. I haven't refreshed it, though, and got the full update. But, I wouldn't imagine it jumps up very much at all. Jordan Noir is jumping off in optimals. Probably not a guy I want to play if he's anywhere near chalk like that. So I'd prefer to go a different route. But I do like Kelly Olynyk quite a bit. I think that, New Orleans is a tougher defense, but he's the kind of matchup that defenses really don't matter. If he's hitting his 3-point shots, it just kind of doesn't matter how good you are on defense as a stretch 5 or whatever he is, stretch 4, stretch 5. So I like Olynyk quite a bit, and Agbaji, like we said. And then if we're jumping over to New Orleans, I'm always going to play a little Zion when he's mid-range price like this, and he's not getting much ownership, and it's a good matchup for him. A bad team on the other side there. He's the one guy for New Orleans that I would rather play over Ingram or McCollum when all things are equal. So I'm on that one. And then, as far as some of the other guys, don't really want to play Jonas in this matchup. Trey Murphy or Herbert Jones seem fine. So, they can always rack up those defensive stats and GPPs. But in general, I am with Agbaji, Kelly Olynyk, and Zion Williamson.
Man, you got to think like the inside stuff. Like Kelly O playing the 5 is just going to get worked by whoever's up against him. But Valanciunas is tricky because they're fully healthy and Toronto's smaller. So there's a major threat that Valanciunas can turn into Larry Nance pretty quickly, and he's not a great fantasy player. Just sort of thinking out loud, like I want to pick on Kelly O. Is like if he's a defender. I assume they're going to throw Barrett on Zion. Obviously there's so much transition stuff and one-on-one stuff is like most of the times I think it's a little over exaggerated. Thought about it a little too hard, but Squall, you got to think though, like Zion he's going to be able to get whatever he wants here, especially if Kelly O is waiting at the rim as a quote unquote rim protector. Doesn't seem like he's going to, subdue much scoring. Yeah, he's my favorite player on New Orleans. Did you give your thoughts as far as the Pelicans? I don't recall if you just kind of threw it to the chop. And who is your favorite player on New Orleans?
Yeah, I think my favorite player in New Orleans is definitely Zion. I kind of agree. So like Joe Val, I'd get a little bit worried that like maybe like Kelly Olynyk is gonna be drifting out towards the 3-point line, and he's drawing like Joe Val away from the basket or something. I think that's less of a concern for Zion, and so yeah, I think Zion Williamson's probably the guy here. But like you could play some Brandon Ingram as well. I'm probably not gonna have like a ton of this game, but I do think you can maybe stack it up a little bit, like maybe like a Ingram, because you'll probably, especially on FanDuel, you'll be getting some Toronto pieces likely, either like Agbaji or Olynyk. And so then maybe if you want to play some Zion, I think that's fine. Or play some Brandon Ingram. I think that works.
I had Boston, Cleveland up next. I'm just going to skip it and hopefully we come back to it and we get some news on it, but we probably won't. But just in case, let's just jump that game. We'll go back, amongst the 7:30 games, the Boston and Cleveland. We'll revisit in a second. They have several key pieces that are questionable. Detroit is in Miami, taking on my Heat. Pistons are 12-point dogs here versus the Heat. Tough place to play. Not a very good team. They are fully healthy, Detroit, with the exception of Quentin Grimes. Miami, no Love, no Hero, no Richardson. Who'd they cut? They cut somebody. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. They added somebody and they cut somebody, but it's not even worth mentioning, I don't think. But yeah, good matchup here, Chop, right, for the Heat, but potential blowout on layaway. Certainly Butler looks fine. Bam against Jalen Duren. Yeah, no issue with that. It's just kind of figuring out the pieces, so kind of dodging some blowout as well. But, not the best game environment here for Detroit and Miami. Chop, the 8 games on the board, is this one of the more appealing or one of the not so appealing games? Because for me, I think it's a little less appealing than I want it to be. Theoretically, good matchup, so of course, for the Heat. What do you got here, Chop?
It's not super fun game, to play here, but it is. Let me see. Let me fix my screen. Yeah, it's not a super fun game, but there really aren't a lot of great games. There's just the late night hammer is the one that is the best game on the slate. And so the other ones just kind of blend all in. But against Detroit doesn't seem like a Jimmy Butler type of atmosphere. He really doesn't get up for these kind of games, right? He's just kind of defers to the other guys. So I'm kind of thinking maybe if I'm playing anybody from Miami, it's going to be Terry Rozier. They really need him to get on track offensively for them to be a threat in the playoffs. I think he can do that against a Detroit team. I think when most of these guys are healthy like they are tonight, Bam's in there and Jimmy's in there, you kind of don't want to mess around with Duncan Robinson. But against Detroit at home, like you may have some of these fringe players, one of them may step up, maybe Jaime Jaquez or something. But I'm going Terry Rozier as my main Miami guy. Not a whole lot of interest in Jimmy Butler and for the most part, Bam either. But on the flip side, against Miami, Detroit just doesn't interest me very much. I just can't really bring myself to roster, especially with one lineup. I'm not going to play Jaden Ivey or Alsir Thompson's fine, but he really has to get there with some defensive stats. So yeah, they're not appealing, and Miami's not all that appealing, but except for Rozier for me.
Miami guys look a little more popular on FanDuel, according to our projections. Bam and Butler in the 20s as far as the percentage. They're in the teens on DK, the highest projected players in this game. Most popular game projected player projected for Detroit is Marcus Sasser, which is and his projection's like 15, 16 points on DK. So, the floor is not appealing. Jalen Duren, any given game, can have that 15, 20, and pile on a bunch of boards, but this does not seem like that kind of game. But if you want to play that route, you're going to be on your own island basically. Squirrel, Detroit, Miami. I don't love this game. Chop doesn't love this game. How do you feel?
I think I like it maybe a little bit more than you guys, but I think it's going to be like a multi-entry thing. 150 lineups. Like I want to get to some Jimmy Butler. I think he's got like 49.5 FanDuel points in 5 out of his last 6 games. So maybe it's kind of becoming the Jimmy Butler time of year. So I'll be playing some Butler, playing some Terry Rozier. This is a matchup like maybe they want to get him going. There's not that many teams that are better matchup for that kind of thing than Detroit. But it's a fairly low total and a big spread. I'm getting like nothing from the Detroit side. And I think like I wrote this in my article, but like I think the Alperin Şengün versus Bam Adebayo thing is maybe a question you gotta figure out. And I'll be playing a little bit of both of them, while I'll be playing a little bit of Bam. And so I like Şengün just much better at a little bit of a lower price on both sites than Bam. So probably gonna be like playing a little bit of Bam in my like 150 set, but I'd be surprised if he hits 10%.
Part of that tiebreaker, I know you wrote about this, is the Wemby. If Wemby plays, if he doesn't play, certainly Şengün can get a little bit of a boost there, taking on Zach Collins, who would be a good fantasy roster for sure, especially on DK, where I believe he's 4'5". But it would be advantageous to pick on Collins as opposed to, Wemby and 7'4", 7'5", whatever he is. It's outrageous. That's part of the reason why you like Şengün a little bit more than Bam, I assume.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's a pretty good matchup. Either way, San Antonio allows a ton of points in the paint despite having Wembanyama. So yeah, and Şengün's one of the league leaders in that category. So yeah, I think I'll be going with Alperin Şengün either way. But it's a bonus if Wemby sits.
No surprise, Mitchich is going to start for Cody Martin today. That's just coming in a minute ago. But again, that was as expected. Okay, let's just move on. Not terribly through all that one. We got Philadelphia and Brooklyn, 212.5 as a total. It's low, but it's tight. Philadelphia is a 1-point favorite at Brooklyn. Brooklyn is the only team on the slate playing the back half of a back-to-back, and they ruled out anybody that was of relevance that was up in the air earlier. No Daron Sharp, no Cam Thomas. Ben Simmons, of course, not playing. Lonnie Walker, I believe, is still questionable for what it's worth. And Philadelphia, they have some questionable pieces in Campaign and KJ Martin. And Maxey officially ruled out, obviously, Embiid still out. We've seen kind of I don't know, rejuvenation is probably not the right word, but Kyle Lowry getting a lot of minutes, a lot of run here for Philadelphia back in Philly. And they probably would be even more, I guess, solidified if Campaign can't go, who's currently questionable with his illness. Again, 212, not a great environment, but there is some interesting pieces and some cheapies, some kind of mid-tier stuff that's pretty interesting. Harris gets a massive bump in the absence of both Maxey and Embiid. I don't think Brooklyn's a team we're afraid of defensively. Claxton's probably going to have to do a lot more work. He's got a pretty cheap price on DK as well. He could play 33, 34 potentially because there's not a lot of depth behind him at center. Ben Simmons plays some 5. He's not available. And then, of course, they're without the other 5 in Daron Sharp. So, they have Watford as a big, Noah Clowney, who I don't think he gets much run at all, if any. How do we feel here, Squirrel, as far as Philadelphia and Brooklyn?
It was a game I wasn't that interested in, and then Tyrese Maxey got ruled out. And now suddenly everybody in Philadelphia is in play. I was even surprised looking at the on-off court numbers, like how well Tobias Harris and Kelly Oubre especially do when Embiid and Maxey are off the court. There's really nobody left to play a part in the offense there, except maybe Kyle Lowry now. The Cameron Payne news is going to be surprisingly big because he's like 3,300 on DraftKings. 3,200. So even if he plays as like a backup to Kyle Lowry, that still puts him in play. Ricky Council, the 4th, might become a thing if Cameron Payne sits. And then there's the pieces from Brooklyn are okay. I like it was Cameron Johnson. I liked him last night. I like him again tonight. He'll go out and shoot the ball. Small forward, like 6,200 on FanDuel. I like him a little bit more on FanDuel and than on DraftKings. On DraftKings, he is a little bit less expensive, but power forward. And then I can play some Dorian Finney-Smith. I never love it, but he's a guy that could fit in there for the price at the forward position. He's only 4,500 on DraftKings. If that's what you're looking to spend on your forward, it's fine. He's had a couple of decent games in a row.
Yeah, we've seen Batum closing for Philadelphia, not necessarily starting. It's hard to predict who's going to close for them, but they are losing less and less players, and that's a good point to mention. As far as how thin they are, it actually does matter. That with Payne being questionable, we're already giving Lowry 34 minutes. I'm not sure if he can play much more than that. We're giving Payne 20. Ricky Council, the 4th, as you said, is only getting 11. I assume he would get a chunk of that. KJ Martin also questionable. Not sure if I mentioned him. He's more of a wing, small 5, getting 8 minutes. This game can certainly go small. Well, Claxton and whatever Philadelphia's going to roll out there. Reed plays pretty small as well, and that's sort of tricky as well, right? Because we had that Mo Bamba starting, and we got excited about Bamba starting. At least some of us did, and then it's like he's playing his same minutes basically, just like in a different order. And Reed would close. Is that the way it's going to be going forward, Squirrel? Or you think that's just Reed tends to be still getting? It's like they're getting the same minutes, but just they're chopping it up differently. If you've noticed, like on the old Court IQ.
I agree. Like Bamba's been a disappointment as a starter. And I never really got any context for why he was starting, which concerns me. So it makes me think that, they don't really want to get him more minutes. It's just about some kind of matchup, redistributing the offensive shots or something kind of thing where they're going to have Mo Bamba out there to start, but his minutes aren't going to increase. So I jumped all over him like everybody else that when he, the first game where he was announced as a starter, but I'm rapidly losing interest there.
Jump in here, Chop. Your thoughts as far as Philly and Brooklyn. A lot of places to go here. A lot of playable guys.
Yeah, lots of stuff going on here. But first, Dean, I'd like to point something out to you. A little known fact. It's pretty interesting, Dean. Ricky Council IV has two brothers that played in college basketball also.
Also named Ricky Council? Like the second and the third?
Their names are Ricky Council II and Ricky Council III. The dad named all of his kids after himself and just give them a 2, 3, and a 4 after. Pretty interesting thing, I don't know.
What does it say about a person that names all their kids after them? It says something.
I mean,
right?
That's got to be a really confusing growing up. But I mean, whatever you want to do, it's whatever floats your boat. You're the dad. You do it. You make your own decisions. I won't be
Foreman household. George Foreman had 7 kids named George. Right?
Yeah, he named them all George, man. But it is what it is, man.
Does he just call them 2, 3, and 4?
I think so. Yeah, they all played high-level college basketball, so they were all really good athletes. That always fascinates me. It's really tough to get to that level just in general, and to be in the same family and have 3 of them do it, or like the Kelseys in football. It's so hard to make the NFL. You got 2 of them. Both are going to the Hall of Fame. It's so interesting. Anyway, Dean, I digress. We got to get back to the slate here.
I thought I was going to get a chop back, by the way. That was a real conversation we had there. I did not anticipate that.
I don't know what you mean by a chop fact. Like a chop fact isn't real. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, the chop facts tend to be kind of little fudge.
They're just little known. That's all. You just got to dig for them.
Wikipedia is confirming your thoughts, by the way. Producer Steve showing it off to the people there. All right. Are they playing overseas or something, or what are they doing these days?
I would imagine they're probably, if you're good enough to play in college like that, you're probably pursuing some kind of career in overseas. Yeah, I would imagine. There's a lot of places these guys leave college now. There's a lot of places they can go and play, and now, Dean, more than ever, the guys like to stay in college for about 5 years because of the NIL. So there's no rush to get out. It's crazy. It's a dynamic world out there, but
it's more profitable for some guys. Yeah,
absolutely. And instead of grinding away in the G League for literally, what is it, $30K if you don't get certain bonuses or whatever, why do that when you can probably make $100, $200K running your 5th year, your COVID year in college? But when I heard Tyrese Maxey got ruled out, Tobias Harris and Kelly Oubre and Buddy Hyde, the first guys that jumped out to me, certainly love all those guys tonight. I think the campaign news is not only big for him, but it's big for Kyle Lowry. If we don't get campaign and we're going to get another 35 minutes of Kyle Lowry, I don't mind that at all. And I'm not. If this was the Miami Kyle Lowry, I'm running away from it. But this is Philly Kyle Lowry, and this is his old coach who actually he knows how to use him, I guess, really well. I don't know. He had his best years in Toronto, and so I like him, but. The absence of Embiid, of course, opens things up in the middle for a guy like Claxton. So I'm going to go to Claxton on the other side. Some of the other guys probably appropriately priced. Dennis Schroeder is pretty close. He's approaching his threshold as far as salary, but it's still low enough. I think you could play him tonight. Bridges and Cam Johnson, I'll probably pass tonight, although I don't hate them, especially game stacks. I don't mind. This is a really tight spread. And should be some short rotations because of the injuries. So game stacks will be fine. But, yeah, I really like that Philly core, especially if we get campaign ruled out. Then I think it could be a 4-man core for Philly here.
You really stuck the umlaut, by the way, on that pronunciation there of Schroeder. That was pretty impressive. I just ran new optimals on DK. So the top two guys that are hitting lineups for me are Kelly Oubre and Cam Payne, which is kind of wild. 52% for Oubre, 37% for Payne. We'll talk about Sam Merrill soon enough as well. The absence of Mitchell's opened up some stuff. And Mitchich is the fourth guy. The fifth guy is DFS, who, Scroll, you mentioned him. Nobody ever gives like a glowing, endorsement, but it's always like, I guess you can, yeah, sure, if you're desperate and he shouldn't kill you. And that's kind of where we're at. But if he's going to be popular, is that the guy you want to play? We'll see how popular he's going to be when all things are, obviously we're still an hour and change out and news can come in. But I try to be under on him as a general rule, Dorian Finney-Smith.
Yeah, he's got like a flat production curve or whatever, right? Like he's never going berserk. But he's the guy that if you need a forward at that price, I think it's fine. You're not really playing Dorian Finney-Smith then. You're playing the other guys in your lineup, and you ended up with Dorian Finney-Smith. So I don't go to like exclude him or anything, but yeah, I'm certainly not going at it. And if there's potential injury situations, right? Like I'm always checking to see like who's below him in price. Is there anybody that can jump off? Because like he's just not a guy that's going to like go berserk and get you, 40 points or whatever, at least generally. So I don't know. I think he's fine. He's the most like fine player in DFS.
By the way, he's 4-5. Can I put you on the spot? Is there anybody, if you eyeball throughout the day, that you think is like got a chance to beat him that's going to be significantly less owned? 4.5K?
Maybe like Batum, but like that's kind of a long shot. Yeah, there's not much else there. So yeah,
it doesn't have to be this game to be clear. Anywhere on the board.
Yeah, no, yeah, there's not really anything out there where I'm like, I think the person has a really, really good shot of outscoring Dorian Finney-Smith. I guess like Josh Green maybe becomes a thing. But that's only if Lucas sits,
We currently have Oubre at 40%, DFS at 22, Claxton 22, Payne 21. Again, he might not even play at all. Schroeder at 20. So a lot of this game's gonna be pretty popular to kind of like make stuff work, and you can get yourself a cheap game stack as well. Lowry's getting some ownership. A bunch of guys in the 15%. Porzingis and Brown are officially in. What do you got?
They're in. Your last question: 4,500 or less.
Got somebody?
So if we're talking about lower ownership and higher upside in the matchup, I would take Zach Collins over DFS.
Well, you're saying that if Wemby's out, or you're taking either way?
No, just either way. If Wemby's out, then I would imagine Zach Collins is probably bumped up in ownership quite a bit. I just like him anyway in the matchup over DFS. DFS, like Squirrel said. What about, and if we're talking about like similar ownership, maybe you slide in a Sam Merrill for cheap.
He's going to be popular too. I think both those guys might be hitting optimal stuff. We'll see. Again, a lot of news coming in. Boston not opening up because both Porzingis and Brown are in. Reminded here on the screen. I don't know why this isn't filled immediately. Like I don't understand. You're playing. You're watching the show, so you're very clearly playing DFS tonight. You're probably playing on DraftKings. You don't have to be, but probably. It's a $5 tournament. $5 tournament that we made. In the Discord channel, RotoGrinders.com/Discord. Go into the live stream chat channel, and there's just added value to it. You finish first, you get your choice of either a week free of RG Premium, all the sports with the exception of NASCAR, or you get a sweet shirt. It says swag. Maybe a hat that constitutes swag as well. Maybe that's negotiable. When you win this, by the way, just slide into Devin's DMs. Producer Devin, you'll see he's actually the one that's posting it. So when you take this down tonight, let him know tomorrow or tonight or whenever. For some reason, it's not sold out just yet. We made it small intentionally. It still hasn't sold out, which is embarrassing. We wanted to reward the people that show up early. A lot of people show up at 6:30, and of course, it'll be filled by then. But, jump in there. It's $5. It's $5. Top 5 get paid. The link, again, is in the Discord channel. We want to fill that up. We want to make it bigger going forward, but if we're not going to fill 30, which is embarrassing, cannot make it bigger. Let's jump back to Boston. Let's talk about Boston. The key pieces are in. Boston at Cleveland tonight. Cleveland, of course, without Donovan Mitchell. 215 is the total. Celtics, arguably the best team in the league, on the road here in Cleveland. Potential playoff matchup down the road. They are 8-point favorites. As far as Cleveland, just go ahead and pull up my page. My apologies. Yeah, LeVert is questionable. Okoro is questionable. We know Mitchell is out and Strus is out. So lots of minutes open up on the wing. Lots of shots opening up on the wing for Cleveland. Zinger and Brown both in for Boston. So, Chop, I'll let you set the table for us. I think you actually mentioned Sam Merrill. He's not really sneaking up on anybody, but we are projecting him to start, which we'll see. Stay tuned. And I think part of that depends upon Okoro, if Okoro is available or not. We know Strus is out. LeVert, they tend to like bringing him off the bench. But, yeah, there's multiple routes with Cleveland. But Boston, at least we know that's pretty settled. Chop, feel free to start with the Cavs.
Yeah, now let me preface it by saying I don't love Sam Merrill, and I usually don't play him in DFS if it's not like really extenuating circumstances. But he not only has a chance to play normal minutes tonight, he has a chance to close also in the blowout. Like you're not going to let LeVert get out. Like he could play in the fourth quarter of a blowout, which could be a good thing too. Which I could see happening because Cleveland just not a very good team without Donovan Mitchell. Probably a very fraudulent team anyway. They just got beat by the Knicks, who didn't have anybody, and Brunson got hurt in the first 10 seconds. So I don't think they're very competitive, and Boston's been blowing people out. So that could come into play. But against Boston, I don't like any of these starters for Cleveland. Just don't like them. Can't play them. That's a really good Boston team unless they already have their mind made up that they're not going to play very hard tonight, which happens sometimes with them. But otherwise, I don't want the Cleveland starters. I'll take a shot on a Merrill or a guy who can get some minutes to start the game or regular rotation minutes and can also close in a blowout. That's the only guys I want over there. And then I'll let Squirrel take Cleveland and Boston.
Go for it, Squirrel.
Yeah, so we're talking about Agbaji and how he's like better priced on FanDuel. The exact like flip is Sam Merrill on DraftKings. So they're so Merrill's 4,800 on FanDuel, Agbaji's 4,800 on DraftKings, and it's reversed. They're 4,100 on the and Sam Merrill is the guy you want on DraftKings. He's 4,100. I agree. Yeah, he could be closing here. If Okoro is out, his minutes probably go up. So then that might make him inevitable on DraftKings. Karis LeVert questionable as well. So there's not a whole lot I'm interested in. In this game, I was actually kind of getting ready to be a little bit enthusiastic about Boston. I thought like Jason Tatum would be a really good play if like Jaylen Brown and Porzingis were out, but those guys are in. There goes my Xavier Tillman sneakiness. That would be a play. He's out of the picture now, so unfortunately now not a whole lot left here, and somewhat low total. But I think Sam Merrill is definitely in play, especially on DraftKings at 4,100.
So, yeah, Boston got guilted into playing their studs with the TNT game. It is an island game, too. They tend to play their games on non-island games. We're not getting a lot of ownership in this game on the Boston side, again, because everybody's healthy. But Merrill coming in 25%. LeVert, if he goes, 21%. We've seen his ceiling. He has those interesting ceiling games on occasion. Certainly he could score like 25, 30 points. He can also distribute the ball as well. The floor can be rough, though. He's one of those guys very dependent upon game flow and how well he is playing. But I do think he's interesting for tournaments. But I don't know if I love him being chalky. Again, we got to see if he's in. Okoro matters from a defensive perspective. Good defensive player. The definitive 3-and-D type, although his 3 is not spectacular. The D is very good. The bigs are good. They're going to get a fair bit of minutes here. Mobley and, Allen. The matchup obviously not spectacular. As noted in chat by several people, Brunson officially out. That's a bummer for my underdog teams. That's okay. We're going to recover, or we'll recover. But that means that how many minutes are we projecting for McBride? I know we had an if-then set up for it. I'm pulling it up now on the fly. We'll get there in a second. Yeah, so we're giving McBride 38 minutes, which is hilarious. DiVincenzo 39, Hart 40. Precious 28, Hartenstein 24, and Bogdanovich 31. So, yeah, those are the main 6 guys to get some run there for New York. But really, it's the main 3.5 with DiVincenzo, Hart, McBride, as far as minutes. The other guys, low 30s or so. Unless we got anything else here, Squirrel. Anything else as far as Boston, or shall we move on for this game?
Yeah, can move on.
Yeah, so that's a good segue for Atlanta and New York. We'll give our projection team a second as well to adjust. I assume they had something set up because this wasn't really out of nowhere. With Brunson being out, no surprise. No Trae Young, of course, on the Atlanta side. So a lot of key pieces missing here. Buffkins not playing for Atlanta for what it's worth. He's got that toe. Still no Okongwu. No Brunson, no Randall, no OG, no Mitchell. So 4 of their starters for New York being out. Yeah. So Squirrel, Brunson being out, concentrated lineup. Josh Hart, and this is the old life comes at you fast. 7'9". He's 7'9". But again, like if you're gonna bet on people playing, who's gonna get a triple double tonight? If we're gonna have a draft on that, he's a first round pick, right? He's a first rounder. Luka's number 1, I guess. I haven't done the math. Maybe Wemby with blocks if he plays. But like Hart, one of the best rebounding wings in the league. He's gonna be on the court a ton. And the absence of Brunson and the matchup. Have we talked about? I think I buried the lead here, Scroll. Atlanta, we like picking on the Hawks, right?
Yeah, exactly. Man, I'm going to be playing some in Josh Hart's 8,100 on FanDuel. And I'm going to be some Josh Harts because Brunson being out, he 46 and 47 minutes last couple of games, 19 rebounds and 18 rebounds. And now, Brunson was out for obviously almost the entire last game as well. So going to be playing some Brunson. And then I kind of like, I'm going to be playing some Josh Hart rather. And then Miles McBride is priced up, but I guess there's the chance he goes over that 38 minutes, right? Like playing 47 and a half last game. He entered the game and did not come off the court. So I don't even know if he went to the sideline during timeouts. I might end up playing some McBride. I think these guys are expensive enough that I don't think they're going to be like absurd chalk or anything like that, even with Brunson out. I'll be getting there, and it's a good matchup against Atlanta. So, New York just got interesting.
They added Shake Milton, by the way. Eric Johnson in the chat. I know he recommended Shake Milton a couple weeks ago when he put about the old DMPCD. He was since cut. I don't know if Shake sniffs the court. He certainly can look at it. I assume he'll be in the front row there, but just kind of looking at the rest of the players. And we haven't officially updated our projections. We only have the projections for the if-then stuff, which is probably going to be essentially the same. All the prices have adjusted on the New York guys because this is not a new situation. Brunson's been in and out. A lot of pieces have been in and out. We've seen a lot of crazy games in New York. We've seen basically 6-man rotation sometimes. But, Chop, what do you feel about 40 minutes against Atlanta? I'm interested. I don't care what the price is.
I actually think that Shake Milton could see enough minutes, not to roster, but to cut into Miles McBride at $5,500. I could see that happening. Like, Shake was not available when Brunson hurt his ankle last game, so Miles had to do all the work. Now I don't know that they'd run, Miles out there for 40 plus minutes if Shake's, who is available to play, can do it. And so I think that kind of takes a little bit of a damper off of Miles McBride, who's not priced cheap anymore. It's $5,500, so that's big. The other stuff y'all say, sure. Josh Hart he's been a monster for 2 weeks now, so he hasn't had a bad fantasy game for 2 weeks. Hart's fine. DiVincenzo is going to get a lot of work. Hardenstein and Achua are going to split time down the middle. I kind of don't need either one of those guys. It could be a Bogdanovich offensive game here. He hasn't really had that game with New York, but without Brunson and all the other guys, Randall has been out and OG's been out. It could be a Bogdanovich game finally offensively. So, any of these guys for New York, pretty darn good, Dean.
Even if you wanted to roster Milton, I don't see him in the DraftKings.
Yeah, I don't think he's available, but he cuts into McBride, that's for sure.
And that is a good point. And I don't know if he's going to play any minutes or not. And maybe I bet you our projection team is discussing it. Well, you know what? We just got an update. I bet you they gave him at least a minute, right? Just because as like a hedge thing. I'm curious where they projected him. I'm giving it a refresh now and going to be pulling up New York because we had the if-then stuff. What Milton was not in there. They're not projecting a minute for Milton for what it's worth. But that, we'll see. They're giving 41 the Hart, 39 DiVincenzo, 30 Pachua, 30 Bogdanovich, 24 Hartenstein, 36 McBride. So not the full 48. Burke 16, Sims 20. They might change that. We'll see. Obviously stay tuned. They still have an hour to figure that out. Maybe more news coming in, but Yeah, that is a good point. There is a chance that Milton could steal a minute, or even 5 or 7 or 8 minutes. It's possible. How about Atlanta? Let's talk about Atlanta here, Squirrel. No Trae Young, and we're going to get Murray. Nobody's playing him. I know New York is like typically not the best matchup, but they're without some of their better defenders. They're still pretty slow, which is the issue. But nobody's playing these guys in Atlanta. 1% for Murray. Jalen Johnson, like barely getting a percentage point. Hawks, are you going to have any of these guys? If you're running 150, it's not hard to get over on that.
Yeah, so DeJounte Murray is in play on FanDuel, where he's a $9,000 shooting guard. I think I'll be getting some DeJounte Murray kind of organically there. On DraftKings, it's the curse. As soon as somebody's more expensive on DraftKings with the lower salary cap, it's really tough to get them. He's 9,400 on DraftKings. I guess this is a bad matchup. So at the cheaper price tag with the higher salary cap, I can get to him on FanDuel. It's just hard to get there on DraftKings. For Shake Milton, there's like a tweet out there about him, Thibodeau saying he'll be situational right now, as opposed to having a regular spot in the run.
That means he's on the bench. That's what I'm hearing. That's coach speak. Okay, I'm glad you found that. That doesn't mean he's not going to play. Then maybe the right situation comes up. McBride gets 2 quick fouls. There you go. That's a situation. Okay, but that is interesting. Anything else we should stress here as far as Atlanta and New York, or shall I move on to the final 2 games that are not in the 7:30 block?
Yeah, I think we can.
Okay, San Antonio, Battle of Texas. We got to go to Chop for this one. 227 is the total. Houston is an 8-point favorite here. Wemby, we don't know. He's questionable. They gave him a shoulder. Champagne is also has a shoulder. No, he's got an ankle, but he's also questionable. Houston fully healthy, at least what we're expecting, because Tari Houston, they shut him down with that leg. I think he's done for the season. He's hanging out with Steven Adams somewhere. But Chop, this is the if then, obviously. Wemby, by the way, all the way up to 12K on FanDuel, and rightfully so, because I know Squirrel, you've speculated that he might force them to change their scoring at some point if he continues this, and he's doing what he's doing in 29 minutes or less than 29 minutes on average. What if one day he starts playing 34, 35? And I don't know, I bet Chop's been around long enough. Squirrel, were you around? There was a time on FanDuel where they capped the players. This is like 8 years ago or something, where nobody was more than 10K. Do you remember this?
I don't think I was playing then. That's in
Chop?
Like 2014.
I do remember, yes. Their algorithm would not let a player be priced above like 5 digits. So 9,900 or something like that was the max.
Which is like you just play the same 4 studs every single night and you figure it out, right? It's just, that was back in the Wild West days for sure. But like that would be wild these days, especially with like Luke, not even just Wemby, but like Luka, 10K, okay, 100%. Don't get hurt. Don't go to the locker room. All right, Chop, you want to start us off here about Old Texas? And again, it's up in the air when it comes to Wemby. We'll see.
Roth is going to the game, so probably Wemby sits. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Roth has some bad karma, man. So I don't know. If Wemby plays, he's fine. He's obviously it's not a terrible matchup for him, but he's a 70-point machine basically lately. So, and he's had his way with the Rockets. So if he plays, he's a great play. The rest of the guys, it's probably a tougher matchup for him. So I don't know if I'm going with Vassell or Sochan or any of those guys here in Houston. I think Houston's a much better team at home. So it's Wemby or bust from the Spurs. Or, like I said, Zach Collins, maybe if you can get a good matchup on the inside with Şengün in the paint and rack up some defensive stats in the low range, you can go that route. But for Houston, I think all these guys are in play. Şengün, although you might think it's a bad matchup against Wemby, it's really not. Like I don't think he'll have a lot of Wemby on him one-on-one, and not to mention the moves he makes in the post are just – that's not Wemby's specialty. Is not like straight-up post defense. So Şengün is good. I like Şengün. Freddie VanVleet, his price is starting to climb back up. Now we're at 73. We've been in the 6s for the last couple of weeks, and he's outperformed that. So now he's climbed back up. I don't know how much I love that. Jalen Green playing really well, Dean. So I think, this is a good matchup for all these guys. Green, Jabari Smith has these games where he goes double-double, and he's really good. The one guy who doesn't do so well fantasy-wise is Dylan Brooks, but he's the one guy who also plays a lot of minutes at a cheap price, so you could do worse than that. And Amin Thompson, he's stepping up his game. He's putting up some really good fantasy lines, some good all-around games at times lately. So maybe he's in play. I probably wouldn't play him at 4,700 tonight with the rest of these guys healthy, but I think there's some fireworks in this game.
Man, what a tilt for Roth. I didn't realize. I just saw his tweet, and he said he's already stressing out. And, yeah, I mean, you go to one game a year, and Wemby's been really healthy. He's played most every single game, right? A couple back-to-backs, they set him out intentionally. But what a bummer that would be. Hopefully for Roth. Wemby
Dean, can I be perfectly quite honest with you here?
Yeah. Are you rooting for him not to play?
I'm hoping next week. I'm hoping Wemby sits against the Rockets when they play in San Antonio next week so I can get some dirt cheap tickets, Dean.
Oh, come on. But you want to go to the game, but you don't want to spend. I mean, like, Chop, it's none of my business. Your financials, this is the second time you've mentioned. Are times really rough in the.
I'm not going to pay $2K for a courtside ticket, Dean. But if Wemby sits, those prices.
Wait, now you going to sit courtside? You're crying poor. Now you want to sit courtside.
Those prices will plummet if Wemby sits. And so, I'm kind of hoping there because I could really care. I could see him in a suit. That's fine. I got to see him. I can just say I got to see him. I want to see the Rockets. So, I'm hoping, maybe he's got a little something going on there.
So let's just do like a hypothetical. Hypothetically, you got to take the whole family. Let's say it costs you $1,000 to get great seats and you watch Wemby. Would you rather have that? Or would you rather spend $400, have mediocre, and then $400 have a little bit weaker seats, but you don't see Wemby? Which would you prefer out of those two?
Well, first of all, I need to correct you, Dean. I'm not taking the whole family to the Spurs game. That's ludicrous. I'm probably going solo, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't need no tag-alongs at that price tag. So
with friends or just solo? Like just
I'm just going solo, and I'm just going solo, Dean, by myself. But I mean, like, give me the cheaper tickets and no Wemby all day long.
Is this a weird take for you, Squirrel? I'm a little bit thrown off by this.
Yeah, I think it's a weird take. Like, you want to see Wemby play. Like, why are you going to go see, like, Zach Collins?
I'm there to see the Rockets. I'm a Rockets fan. I don't know if you guys know that. I'm only there. The only game you're going to pull me out to in San Antonio is against the Rockets. That's it.
All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, that makes sense.
Well, you're a basketball fan and you want to see Wemby. This guy's a phenomenon.
I'll see him. He'll be in his three-piece suit and he'll be looking dapper on the sideline. That's seeing him, Dean.
Okay. Squirrel, jump in here. Give some analysis in this game. We're on the same side here.
I actually want to circle back because we got some Alec Burks demands in chat, I think. That I just want to touch it. Like last game, McBride played 47.5 minutes. I think Alec Burks played like 10. And he seems to only come in for like Dante DiVincenzo. So they just don't seem willing to use him in that way. I like if they were going to, like, it seems like last game was an emergency situation. If they're not playing more Alec Burks, like at point guard or something in that situation, then they're probably just not going to do it. So
that's a good point.
Yeah, so not that interested in Alec Burks, like not as interested in Alec Burks as you would think in this situation. So then recircling back to the San Antonio-Houston game, I hate to tell Roth, but I kind of lean towards Wembanyama sitting. They're not going to have Wembanyama aggravate some injury in March of his rookie season, right? And so they're going to be as cautious as they possibly can. And that makes me more interested in the Houston guys. Şengün's the one I mentioned earlier. You're pretty interested in him compared to Bam Adebayo. Interested in some like Fred VanVleet as well. He's 7,800 on FanDuel. Even better, like 7,300 on DraftKings. Interested in some Jalen Green on the Spurs side. Again, assuming Wembanyama's out, it's like Zach Collins is probably in play at 4,500 on DraftKings. He is not in play at 6,500 on FanDuel. Like they preemptively priced him up. 6,500 is a little crazy. Not playing any Zach Collins on FanDuel, but I think he would be in play, and you maybe even want to like look
lock
towards,
buttons.
Yeah, at 4,500.
45, a borderline lock button, I think. Our current projection would be 29 minutes, 37 DK points, 37 FanDuel. So, like, even on FanDuel, I think he's playable at 6'5". But, not the same. But like the 4-5 on DK, it's like I'm just gonna play him, and that's that.
Yeah, the difficult thing though is what do we do if we go into lock and we don't know whether or not he's playing or not.
Skip the first game,
like whether or not Wembanyama is playing, because he's center only. So I can see like in DraftKings at a flex position, but then maybe you're getting some either Tim Hardaway at 4,600, maybe some Josh Green, maybe some Cam Whitmore. if you assume that Collins, the Wembanyama is out, that Collins is in play, then and then Wembanyama ends up playing. And then the alternate thing you can do is you can just be playing a ton of these last two games, which I think is also a viable strategy. Like you're like going overweight San Antonio guys, like Pacers guys, like Mavericks guys, because as we'll get to it right after this Luka injuries, is questionable, but that's going to have an impact on the slate as well.
So TJ hanging out in chat. If you guys don't know where he's coming on about 10 minutes or so, he's going to be holding down crunch time for Roth. Roth, of course, on his way to watch some basketball tonight. For Roth's sake, I really hope Wemby plays. What a bummer that would be if he does not. Taylor's coming on as well. In addition, you got Keith Eyster. You got the three of them coming on in about 10 minutes or so. Looking at the projection stuff as far as ownership on DK when it comes to this game, and obviously it's yet to be determined. Did we talk about Squirrel? We talked about playing Wemby. We didn't even talk about that angle, did we? Like, are we just like you could always play Wemby. The matchup's not great versus Houston. On FanDuel, he's 12K. I know the angle we were most talking about was like, what if he doesn't play? If then, but what if he plays? Squirrel, are you going to get any Wemby? You're never angry about getting it, right?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Like I think the way that I end up getting to Wemby is if I'm playing some Luka, because I'm kind of leaning towards Wembanyama being out, especially given the Kevin Roth factor now. Like if he's heading to the game for one chance to see Wembanyama, it seems inevitable. So I am leaning towards Wembanyama sitting. I think the way that I get to him is if I'm playing Luka, because I think Luka's probably going to play. And these are like 60-40%, confidences, but that if Luka ends up being out, then I can see myself swapping down to some Wembanyama on DraftKings. Wembanyama is so much better priced on DraftKings, and he scores so much better on FanDuel. But yeah, at 10-7, there is some concern there that I think they're going to be as cautious as they possibly can. Whereas like Dallas is maybe going the other way with Luka, where like, we need these wins. So yeah, leaning towards Wembanyama sitting.
All right. The Hammer game is on deck. Of course, Phoenix, Denver. That's not on the main slate. We've not been talking about this. Chop, I was just curious if you had a thought. I wanted to, we'll knock the game out in a second. But I think we have a minute. I bet Chop's got a thought. Are there going to be any like real stud players, like real A-level players that go and say, you know what, I can play anywhere I want in the league, and I'm going to choose San Antonio because Wemby's there? Because San Antonio is never a place that gets nothing against San Antonio. They never garner free agents, just like big name free agents. This doesn't happen. Will there be a big free agent that says, I'm going to team up with Wemby in San Antonio?
I think there would be down the line if Wemby is there, Dean. There's already kind of rumblings that he's only going to put up with this tanking for so long, and then he's not going to want to play for. Like I know, he's still young, but man, he's developed so much faster than I think anybody expected. That he doesn't want to be tank this year. You're gonna, you're at the bottom of the standings, but next year we better be improved. And if we're still in this position next year, then you start thinking about that rookie contract. But yeah, I think if he stays on this trajectory and he stays healthy, there will be, I don't think you're going to get like who's the best in the league when he comes up available. Like Halliburton's probably locked up for a while now, right? Like
I think Indiana. Yeah, I think they're going to give him the max.
So I don't know who the big a big guy would be. Who, let's say Tyrese Maxey. Let's say Tyrese Maxey. No, I don't even want to use him. I don't know. I think there's a certain level. If you're like an elite player, probably not going to, Wemby's not going to dictate. But if you're like that next level down and you are looking to win
Zion,
games, I could see Zion chasing a ring. Anybody chasing a ring, who's not like a super elite level player will absolutely alter their entire basketball world to go and play with this guy who all he needs is a little bit of help. Once he turns about 21 and develops a little bit more, he just needs a little bit of help, and he's going to win world championships. So, yeah, I think so.
Chat's saying Trae Young. I think he's like the biggest, most overrated, quote unquote, superstar in the league as far as winning. I mean, he would love to play with Wemby, I'm sure. They'd be fun to watch. I don't really think of him as like a superstar, though. You guys can tell me otherwise. Scroll, you have a thought on that before we talk about this last game?
I think the Trae Young thing is an interesting call. Like they would be pretty complimentary. And I don't know, like if Wembanyama develops like this, I don't know that they need like another superstar. Like they'll get a good pick in this year's draft. Maybe they'll continue getting first rounders. And I think like the situation's like more complex than like signing free agents too. Like they're maybe looking at disgruntled guys that are like under contract, but looking for a trade kind of situation. And I think those guys will like say, like, yeah, I'll go to San Antonio, play with Wemby, especially like 5 years from now. Yeah, forget about it. Like they'll go get a ring and then hit the free agent market in another year or two, or then just re-sign with San Antonio. I think it'll be that kind of like situation where it's not necessarily straight free agent signing.
TJ coming in hot in chat saying Trae Young and Sabonis and Randall, the big three, are the most overrated players in the league. I don't think that's a terrible take. I kind of agree with that as a general thought. I don't know if that's the three guys. I don't know if they're 1, 2, 3 in the Family Feud board, but as far as winning, sure. Andrew's talking about Luka playing with Jokic. Those two seem to like each other a lot. They seem to have a good time at All-Star Week. At some point in their careers, maybe they're not their peak, they're going to play together. Maybe like in 8 years, who knows? But we care about today and today only. And today, we don't know if Luka's playing. Luka is questionable, and that's a big deal because he takes every shot and all the usage and runs the whole thing for Dallas, taking on Indiana. Of course, the matchup is spectacular as well, but he's questionable, legitimately questionable with that ankle. Maxi Kleber's got that knee, so he's questionable. DJJ, he has a shoulder, he's questionable. Indiana, Naismith, Mathurin, Shepherd, all questionable too. Individually don't mean a ton, but if all three are out, things could change. This is another reason why I think you consider kind of punting to some extent, or mostly that first game at 7 o'clock. I'll throw it to you here, Chop. When it comes to Indiana, Dallas, then we'll go to Squirrel, and I believe we have crunch time coming in about 4 or 5 minutes or so. But Chop, your thoughts when it comes to the Hammer game. Best you can do, right? Because
the best, Dean, this is the best. Did you read the survey today, Dean? I threw
I have it up here.
A little current, like what's the thing that stood out to me is it's rare. It's kind of rare on an 8-gamer that the actual 2 highest team totals on the night are coming from the same 2 teams in this game, which happens to be our late night Hammer. This is just a really, really phenomenal fantasy game. And if Luka ends up being in, I'm going to have Luka anyway. And if he's not in, then boom, easy pivot to Kyrie. And then with that extra money, just upgrade somewhere else. That's not hard. But I love Luka tonight. I actually like starting a GPP lineup with Luka against Tyrese Halliburton. And that would leave you about 4,800 left per player. And I think with all the news we've had today, you can make that happen. But, there's a lot of Kyrie's a fine play in this game. I love Derek Lively in this game at this price tag with this pace and the shots going up off the rim. Even in a high-scoring game, there's going to be plenty of misses. He's going to rebound. He's going to block shots. He's very active in the middle. On the other side, Miles Turner is, I think, a really good center in this game, a really good play at center. Siakam should thrive. Like, there's a lot of really good pieces in this game. I'm like, my one lineup, first guy in is Luka, though. So that's a no-brainer for me.
Keep the laptop open just in case. But, yeah, I think he plays. I feel like he plays. He tends to play. His projection right now is 68 points and change. A median projection on DK, which is insanity. But, like, that's kind of what it is. And he's facing the Pacers. Get the Pacers bump. I did read in the survey you mentioned Turner was really, really good last time out versus Dallas not too long ago. And the other part of that, and if you care for such narratives, is somebody in chat mentioned that apparently he grew up about 30 miles away from Dallas. I think he's got some friends and family lurking. So, yeah, feel free to, jump on that narrative or into such things. And Squirrel, I'm sure you're backloading to have some you're planning on Luka and you have plan B if you need it. But how are you attacking Pacers Mavs?
Yeah, so I actually like being over the field on this game. I think most people are expecting Luka to play, so I'm guessing that he's going to see a pretty substantial ownership. But I'm kind of right there with everybody else assuming he's going to play. I think you kind of have to. And I do. I think if he does end up sitting, you're at least getting Kyrie, and you're getting some Kyrie and some salary. So I don't mind the idea of like playing some game stacks of this game because Indiana's got some guys that are questionable as well. So there's possible that it's so hard to predict at this point in the night what you'll be looking at just 8:30. But like with Mathurin questionable and like maybe you're just having a few slots from this game gets you the right combination of salary that should something happen with Luka that you're still ending up with Kyrie and something decent from upgrading some Indiana piece. So yeah, gonna be over the field on this game, and it's got a huge point total. So I think if I kind of guess wrong on anything, the point total gives me some solace that like this game could just go berserk. So so maybe even if I guess the wrong way, and I'm kind of lumping the 8:00 game, the Houston San Antonio game in with this as well. I'm gonna try to be over the field on those two games. And just depending on when we get news, like hopefully hit the right combinations. But yeah, Luka is the guy that you want here with the monster projection. Again, playing against Indiana at home. And if he misses the game, I'll take my Kyrie. I'll take my salary, see if I can do anything with it, and just so be it.
Got some backlash in the chat, by the way, for saying that Sabonis is overrated. Several people. He gets triple doubles, which I think is also kind of an overrated. It's a thing, but like it's a little exaggerated. Are you on the side? You go ahead.
He was the least overrated of the guys on the overrated list.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, I can agree with that thought. That's fair. Would you throw? Is there somebody top of the head you throw in? That you throw in place of Sabonis?
Can't think of it. Sabonis is a tough player because he's statistically so good, but like I think he's better than Julius Randle and Trae Young.
Let's see. Somebody in chat's asking if Jester wants to know if DK has late swap tonight. Yes, that was just a one-time thing, a one-time deal. We're gonna late swap to crunch time in just a second. We have Taylor, we got Keith, we got TJ in 3, 2, 1. There it is, the seamless segue. We're starting to figure it out. Mitchell says Zion's overrated. You started all this, TJ. You're stirring it up, but I kind of like your call. The chat's not happy with you. You're playing the role of Roth today for Roth's sake. Hopefully, we get Wemby to play tonight for him. But yeah, TJ, what's up? Welcome to the show.
Yeah, happy crunch time, everybody. We got a nice, exciting 8-game slate, all of it kind of happening within an hour or an hour and a half of each other. So this is gonna be an enjoyable one for us.
I'm getting yelled at by my friends because I'm on the clock for the last half hour in my slow draft for baseball. So they're getting antsy. Like, don't you know I'm doing a thing? Some of us have to work for a living, but I got to pick somebody. We might get some Blake Snell in like the 7th or 8th. Is that a good value? I don't know. I'm not really sure. We're throwing darts. But let's give him the old feel him the plum play. Chop, you go first. Squirrel, you followed up. Chop, I feel like you're going to pick somebody from the later game. You've kind of led that throughout the show. But yeah, who are you feeling in the plums? Be as ambitious as you want to be, Chop. Don't just give the people Luka.
Okay.
They know about Luka.
Okay. Let's go a little bit crazy here. And I got my eyes on a couple of different players I think could have a good game, but I'll go Buddy Hyde. I think without Tyree, I'm going to go Buddy Hyde to get hot from three-point land and smash tonight.
By the way, my apologies, Chop. I do recall the reason why you are pinching pennies these days is because of my terrible Zion take a couple weeks ago. The one time you listened to me for advice and I steered you astray, he was handsy that night. I lost a lot of money that night too, and he did not get there as far as assists. I believe he fouled out like 6 minutes to go. But all right, so my apologies. I'll PayPal you some money if things are. Things are.
Buy me my Rockets ticket and we'll call it even, man.
I'll buy you a nosebleed if you promise to sit all the way up top. I'll buy it for you. Squirrel, what do you got? Who do you feel in the plums tonight?
I'll go Alperen Şengün. It's either Şengün or like Kelly Oubre. Oubre is going to be pretty popular no matter what, so I'll go with Şengün.
Oh, and TJ, your registry link didn't work for me. It was trying to send it to my house. So I got to figure something out for you as well. We'll talk
You
about
probably
this
sent
there.
that first Funko Pop from my wedding to your house too.
I wish
You
I
probably
had
have a
Funko
nice.
Pop.
You probably have a nice Funko Pop sitting in your office right now that we can't see because of the wonderful new RotoGrinders 2.0 background.
I got Walter White here, but no Funko Pop. Just Walter White hanging out. All right, we're gonna step aside, get out of here, make way for crunch time. On behalf of myself, Squirrel, and Chop, hit that like button while you're hanging out. While we seamlessly segue to crunch time, you got Taylor, you got Keith, you got TJ. TJ, take it away.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to RotoGrinders Crunch Time. We got a nice 8-game slate. I'm joined by two of the sharpest minds in the biz. Returning champion from yesterday, we got Keith Eyster. How you doing, Keith?
Yeah, doing well. Got a fun 8-game slate here. Lots of injury news, so plenty of value out there. Maybe potentially some more opening up. Definitely think it's a good slate to backload a little bit. And I mean, you can't do it very much because so many games start at 7:30, but as much time as you can give yourself to get a little bit more information is going to be useful, I think.
And joining us as well, we got the guy with the great first name, great mustache, little nice soul patch going on with it. Wonderful salmon shirt as well. Looking good as always. Taylor Smith, how you doing?
I'm good. I do like this slate. Like Keith was saying, looks like a fun one. Still some news pending. We will likely get plenty during the show. So let's see what chaos awaits.
Keith, I want to throw it to you for an overview, actually, because you brought up extending the amount of time you may have to wait for news. I'm running 150 lineups today, and I'm personally just going to ignore the first game. I X'd it out completely, so I have that extra time. Give us a rundown since we have all these injuries, and what are you doing with that situation?
Yeah, so I mean, there's definitely some good value popping already. We know Charlotte has been really shorthanded here. But I agree with you. I think you can kind of skip over that 7:00 game and buy yourself an extra 30 minutes there because there are some situations that are still pending. News that we've gotten already that's very impactful is Jalen Brunson is out. The Knicks have an awesome matchup against Atlanta. And we know that Tibbs loves to run his guys out there for around 40 minutes. So I think the Knicks are in a really good spot. Cleveland is shorthanded and potentially even more shorthanded with Donovan Mitchell out already. And Karis LeVert and Isaac Okoro still questionable. Those guys don't matter themselves necessarily, but they could make some other value pop. Guys like Sam Merrill potentially. Darius Garland obviously looks pretty good. Let's see. Toronto is really shorthanded as well. Several guys out there. We saw Agbaji jump into the starting lineup and take 20 shots in his last game. So lots of usage to go around in Toronto for some guys who are stepping into newer roles. Now Pirtle is out as well. So Kelly Olynyk, we have projected to start. And then there's two really big ones that are still hanging out there. Victor Wembanyama is questionable and Luka Doncic is questionable. So obviously those two guys have massive rates across the board, and either one of them missing would completely change the slate. If Wemby misses, obviously, Zach Collins is who we would project to start, and he'd be popping as a top value on the slate. Vassell would get a nice bump, as well as all of the rest of the Spurs. And then Luka, we know Kyrie would jump up a ton, as well as guys like Tim Hardaway. So like just the massive usage and all the other rates that Wemby and Luka have, either of those guys missing could bring a ton more value into the slate. I don't know if we're going to have that news by 7:30 is the biggest problem. So I'm personally backloading both of those two games at the end of the slate, just so I have a little bit more flexibility in the event that Wemby or Luka does get rolled out.
If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you're smashing that like button for us. We got 500 people watching right now. We got to get these likes way up since Dean never pays attention to that. Dean's great. We love Dean, but he's terrible at getting the likes. Come on, man. So let's pump these likes way up here. I'll get the QQs on YouTube after I hit the ones in the RotoGrinders Discord live stream chat. We also have Tournament Tuesday going on in the live stream chat. So scroll back a little bit. We got a 30-man DraftKings tournament, $5. That's it. Just a $5 entry fee for RotoGrinders members in that live stream chat. And if you win, not only do you win the money, but you win either a week free or some free RotoGrinders swag, your call. So make sure you get in that one as well. And you can take a look today as well. at the 3-day pass for RotoGrinders Premium if you want to check it out. Because if you wanted to try RotoGrinders Premium, you want the projections, you want the projected ownership, you want all the tools, but you don't want to pay for a full month, you can now try it. $20, $19.99. There's never been a better time to join the RotoGrinders community, so find the 3-day trial link in the description down there for more info and to sign up today. And you can also find out that same link for another 3-day pass, and it's for the props and pick'em package. The experts at the RotoGrinders projections team take our premium stats, comb through the market for any inefficiencies. Using our model, you can easily see which lines are off, where to find them, and how likely the prop will hit based on our tool. And that 3-day pass, it'll auto-renew after 3 days. And the link is in the description down there below as well. And finally, SimLabs is the expert DFS lineup generation tool from RotoGrinders and Fantasy Labs. Geez, I have a lot of saliva in that mouth today. It's hard to do these fast reads. I keep having to get rid of it. You didn't need to know that, but it's a live show. You can't take it back. With a few clicks, you can have hundreds of well-built correlated lineups for whatever contest you're playing. Running out of time before lock, quickly build a set of lineups to fill out your entries. Want to see who might be falling under the radar? Use the tool to examine the field. Examine the players the field might be sleeping on. All combo and NBA survivors have access to SimLabs. Taylor, why don't you give us a little position-by-position breakdown starting on FanDuel for what we're doing in cash games today?
Will do. So there's one player in the early game, Charlotte Orlando, that grades out well, and it's Micic. I think that's how you say that. He's starting for Charlotte. 4,800. He's cheaper on FanDuel than on DK, which is always an indicator of a really good value on FanDuel. So he's the guy you're definitely playing in cash, just starting. Not a good matchup, but cheap enough, and Charlotte is without several guards again tonight. A few others to consider. Miles McBride. He's 5'7". He will start presumably for Brunson. Minutes should not be an issue for him. They do have Shake Milton tonight, but I don't think he will cut into him too much. This is Milton's first game with the Knicks. So McBride, I think he played 47 minutes in the last game. Can't expect that again, but 40-ish would not be too surprising. So great matchup against Atlanta too. Luka, another point guard only to consider. Obviously, the top overall play on the slate. He is questionable, but I tend to think Luka's going to play. We will see. Obviously, if he's out, you can pivot down to Kyrie, who's going to be the best play on the slate. If Luka sits, Emmanuel quickly, another one. You can play him at shooting guard. I think that's the way to go, just because Micic, McBride, and Luka are all point guard only. Quickly is going to see tons of usage for Toronto with Scotty Barnes out. Ditto for RJ Barrett, of course, once we get there. I think that really does it for cash point guard on FanDuel. Shooting guard, Kelly Oubre is definitely a core play tonight, 5'9". We're expecting him to start with Maxey sitting for Philly. Should see plenty of usage with Maxey and Embiid out, of course. He's only 5'9", so great spot for him. Quickly, I mentioned DiVincenzo is another guy capable of playing 40-plus minutes, if not likely to play 40-plus minutes. He's priced up, but as I mentioned, they're playing the Hawks, so that's one of the better matchups on the slate. Happy to look his way even at 7'9". A couple more Raptors, Abaji and Trent should start together, both shooting guard only on FanDuel. Abaji is obviously the cheaper of the two. Trent a little more expensive. Trent's minutes should be more secure. Both are fine for cash. Devin Vassell, definitely playable in cash. Shooting guard only too. He will get a bump if Wemby sits, of course. He should lead the team in usage in that situation. Still waiting on that news, of course. Shifting to small forward, Oubre, DiVincenzo, both eligible here. Tobias should lead the Sixers in usage tonight, we would think, against the Nets. Josh Hart, just playing monster minutes, 45-plus minutes in each of the last two games. Should see, in theory, similar burn tonight. We're paying an insane amount for Josh Hart, but he still grades out really well in projections, so fine doing that in cash. Jimmy Butler, maybe a secondary play. Dylan Brooks, fine, cheapy if you need him. Don't really think you do need him, though. Power forward, Kelly Olynyk's going to be a core play, 5'8" on FanDuel. Should start. Didn't start the other day with Barnes out, but now that Poeltl is also out, Olynyk should be cleared to play 30-ish minutes for the Raptors. I mentioned Josh Hart. Zion's popping into a lot of lineups at 8-1 on FanDuel. Same price, I believe, as on DK, which, like I said earlier, means Zion is a better play on FanDuel with the higher cap. So happy to look his way in an exploitable matchup against the aforementioned Raptors. We just got Caris LeVert in and Isaac Okoro in. That's probably more relevant on DK. Both are going to be good plays, I think. But on FanDuel, they weren't really getting into many optimals. Moving to center, Olynyk eligible here. Şengün looks good against the Spurs, regardless of the Wemby news. Bam Adebayo, I think, is the play, though, at 8-4. Miami gets a great spot against Detroit. Pistons obviously don't protect the paint or any part of the court very well, so Bam should smash with Hero out. Plenty of usage to go around for them, particularly Bam. So that's probably what you're doing in cash. I think Bam's the center on FanDuel.
All right, Keith, take us through some tournament takes. Now that we finally got that Cleveland news, I feel comfortable at least getting my first build of lineups in here. That was like the last one. Obviously, we're still waiting on Wemby and Luka, but that was kind of like that last one that I felt like I needed to get in now before things started off. I don't know if we're having another crazy Facebook day with us popping over there. What's going on? But we have over 1,200 viewers right now. So smash that like button wherever you're watching, whether it be YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you're viewing us. Smash that like button because we got a nice, healthy squad joining us today. Keith, why don't you take us through some tournament takes?
All right. So I mentioned wanting to build heavily into those last two games. That includes putting Wemby into my build, even here on FanDuel where he's 12K. Just has shown an incredible ceiling. Tougher matchup against Houston, who's been solid on the defensive end, but Wemby can smash any matchup. So definitely want to make sure I get some exposure there. Going overweight on Vassell as well as my two kind of favorite San Antonio guys before we get the news. Again, this is just building in additional flexibility in case we get Wemby out or Luke out later. I think guys like Dylan Brooks, Jalen Green is one of my favorite guys to go overweight on early. And then guys from Indy as well. You can certainly put some Miles Turner in there. You can put some Tyrese Halliburton in there, Pascal Siakam. All these guys are viable, even if the news stays as is and both Wemby and Luka play. But what it's doing is just giving me additional flexibility for later on in the slate. So just wanted to get those couple of names, building heavy with like Houston and Indy. Those obviously turn into Dallas and San Antonio players if Luka or Wemby gets ruled out. But just a general overall strategy view to start. And then we'll just break it down position by position. At the point guard, obviously, if Luka's in there, he's an exceptional play. Awesome matchup against Indiana, who has really struggled on the defensive end. Micic is a guy that I'm going to be underweight on just because, like I said, I want a little bit of flexibility. We saw him start in the last game, confirmed starting again. I don't think he has quite the same role in the starting lineup as he did off of the bench. Just not as much usage to go around playing next to like Bridges and Mann as there is coming off the bench and being kind of the guy leading the second unit. So underweight on Micic for me, overweight on Kyrie for sure. Obviously, he becomes a fantastic play if Luka gets ruled out. I think Darius Garland has a big ceiling. It's a really tough matchup against Boston, but without Mitchell there, he should have a ton of usage in this spot. I mentioned Jalen Green as a guy I'm definitely overweight on just because he's in a later game. Kyle Lowry is really interesting today. Don't love the matchup against Brooklyn, who plays pretty slow, but Kyle Lowry could have a big role. And I do think there's like Cameron Payne is still questionable. There's a chance that Kyle Lowry could see upper 30s minutes in this spot if Cameron Payne does get ruled out. There's really no one else. Terquavion Smith is there, but if Payne is ruled out, they're really thin in the backcourt. So I think Kyle Lowry is a solid play. Miles McBride is priced up here on FanDuel, but again, like the minutes could be insane. Taylor touched on his insane game the last time where he subbed in for Brunson after the injury and just did not leave the floor. Halliburton, a guy you can always target for ceiling. Let's see, throwing a couple of shooting guards here. DiVincenzo in a great spot, could have a ton of usage here without Brunson. The Kelly Oubre thing, I think he's in a great spot, but I think I want to be underweight on him. He's just really scoring dependent, and he's going to have a ton of usage, no doubt, today. But he's a really streaky shooter. If his shot's not falling, he could have a tough time getting there. So at his ownership level, slightly underweight on Kelly Oubre for me. Same with Gary Trent. Very similar situation, a guy who's very scoring dependent, and he needs a shot to be falling. I do like Agbaji, stepped into the starting lineup and had a ton of usage. Don't know that he's going to keep that same type of usage, but the minutes should be there for him, assuming that he's back in that starting lineup. Buddy Hield, I think, is a phenomenal play today. Again, there's so much usage to go around with Maxey and Embiid out of that Philly lineup. Somebody's going to have to score a ton. I like Buddy Hield as a candidate to be one of those guys. The Cleveland guys, LeVert, I think, is interesting, and Sam Merrill as well. If that game gets out of hand, you could see Merrill get a blowout run as well. Even if he starts, I'm not sure that he's a lock to start. I think they could definitely do something like Dean Wade.
He is starting.
He is. All right, perfect. Even though he's starting, I still think he could see some blowout run though. So don't mind being over the field on somebody like Sam Merrill. Moving on to the forward positions, Kelly Olynyk having power forward eligibility is huge. The ownership is reflecting that as well. So I don't necessarily feel the need to be overweight on Kelly Olynyk, but him having that power forward eligibility definitely helps get him into more of my lineups. I think Jimmy Butler is an outstanding play. Awesome matchup against Detroit, who's terrible on the defensive end. One of my favorite tournament plays on the entire slate, Tobias Harris. Again, just that Philly situation could have a ton of usage here. No Maxey, no Embiid. RJ Barrett, kind of a similar situation in Toronto. They're just really shorthanded. Rates have been up since he moved to Toronto, so like him a good amount. Cameron Johnson is priced up a little bit here on FanDuel, but he's had a much better role. Brooklyn's missing a couple bodies as well. So I think Cameron Johnson has more upside than we typically think of him having. Siakam and Brooks, two guys that I'm just kind of throwing in there as late game players. And then at the center position, Şengün is a guy that I'm well over the field on. Again, another guy in that late game. The matchup is awesome against San Antonio. I like Nick Claxton as well. No Simmons means his upside for minutes is better. Good matchup there against Philly, who's really struggled inside defensively since Embiid went out. Miles Turner's in that late game. I like him a good amount. Let's see here. Anybody I'm missing? I didn't mention Bam. Bam's a phenomenal play. Obviously, awesome matchup against Detroit, but looking pretty chalky. Probably just matching the field on Bam, but I do think he's in a great spot. And then I talked about Wemby. If he's in there, I definitely want some exposure there.
I like it. I really like the Miles Turner call, especially. I think he is going to be a very strong play tonight. As we pivot over to DraftKings, smash the like button, and we have 3 spots left in the Discord contest. You can go to the Discord live stream chat, enter the DraftKings contest. It's $5. Not only do you win the money if you win, but you also win some free RotoGrinders swag. And if you're watching us on YouTube, smash the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell there as well. On DraftKings, I want to know if either of you can help me out with this or you're getting a similar situation. I'm playing 150 lineups today. Are either of you playing like 20 plus or like using lineup HQ to build today?
Yeah, I'm playing 20.
How much of the ugly cheapies do you have? Because I ended up with 30% Jordan Nwora, 30% Cameron Payne, and 30% Sam Merrill, and I don't want any of that.
So
yeah, I was getting a lot of Nwora too, and I really don't want him.
I had to bump Cameron Payne's projection down to 15 points, and I'm still getting 30% of him today.
I think he's fine just because he's 3-2, and he's been, he kind of has a ceiling, so don't mind that as much.
I do kind of like Cameron Payne as well. I think it's totally fine to build with that much. I mentioned Merrill. Now that he's starting, I think he's fine. Nwora is definitely the one I would be most concerned about in that situation, but I think Payne definitely has upside. Like Lowry's been playing big minutes, but can he continue to do that is the question. I also think Payne could see some time off the ball as well at the shooting guard. So I think Payne has minutes upside in this spot.
All right. I upped his projection to 16 points. So it's just a small bump down just to make sure I'm not getting him in basically all of my lineups today. But Taylor, why don't you start us with a position by position build for DraftKings Cash?
Yeah, so Payne is getting into a lot of lineups as you would expect for 3-2, just because he's so cheap. He's been, solid per minute over the years. No Maxey, and Lowry may be physically incapable of playing 40 minutes at this point of his career. So I don't mind Payne if he's in. Of course, he is questionable, though, so we're going to have to keep an eye on that. The core play at point guard is Luka. He's 12-2 on DK, but awesome spot against Indiana. That's a pace-up team, obviously. Luka, another questionable guy, but like I said earlier, if he's out, you can just pivot down to Kyrie and I guess, leave a couple spots so you can spend that extra money elsewhere. There is like a $3,300 difference between the two or so. Micic, fine for cash, 5K on DK. Don't love it, but don't hate it for cash in particular. Lowry's over 5K. That's a bit much for him, but especially if Payne's out, he's just going to have to play by default. So I think that is okay for cash if it comes to that. Dennis Schroeder, another guy playing bigger minutes now that he's starting for Brooklyn at the point. No Simmons, no Cam Thomas, of course. So that's okay. Devin Vassell, like I said earlier, is going to be better if Wemby is out, but still viable in cash on DK, shooting guard and point guard eligible. Let's see, shooting guard Stan Merrill, obviously core play 4-1 now that we know he's starting. No Strus, no Mitchell. Should see around 30 minutes, like Keith said, potential for more if the game gets out of hand. They are playing Boston, so there's certainly a chance of that. But I think he's pretty good either way. Kelly Oubre, definitely a cash play at 5-3 on DK, guard forward eligible. Plenty of reasons to play him. He is, again, scoring dependent, but for cash, not a huge deal. He should be able to get there at that cheap salary. DiVincenzo is fine. Caris LeVert, now that he's in, looks good. He should. I think he's been missing time with an elbow injury, so I don't really think he'll be limited. I should see 30-ish or so off the bench with Mitchell and Strus out. Cheap enough.
He can't be shooting worse than he was before he went for that elbow injury. Like, he had the one great game with 15 assists, but he had been shooting like 25% from the field before that.
Yeah, it is Boston, so I guess it's possible that he craters again, but he's cheap enough to where I think it's okay. Jalen Green, I never loved for cash, but he has been playing a little better of lately. His minutes are just so volatile, though. Like, if he's playing poorly, they have no qualms about benching him. He's fine for cash, but I'm not loving the idea of looking his way. Jimmy Butler, if you have a little more money to spend, he and Josh Hart, both in the 8K range, which sounds really weird. Hart's actually getting into a few more lineups than Butler. He's a little cheaper. Matchup is good for both. But Hart for 7-9 is certainly viable in cash, just because anyone capable of playing 48 minutes is by default viable. I think that'll pretty much do it for small forward. Shooting guard Wara, he's 3-4. Should see around 20 minutes off the bench. That is not a safe play, though. I do think it's better for cash than for tournaments, I think, especially if he's going to be catching ownership. But ideally, we're not playing Wara tonight for 3-4. Kelly Olynyk, definitely a core play. He's over 6K, but like I said earlier, minutes should be safe. Dorian Finney-Smith is a guy that I was getting a lot of too for 4 or 5 minutes. Really with him, he's got a secure role. Very poor per minute, but I think it's fine if you land on it. And at center, Nick Claxton looks good. Day'Ron Sharpe is out. He's 6'7". Obviously, no Philly for Embiid, or no Embiid for Philly makes the spot better for Claxton. So he grades out well. Dean Wade is getting into some lineups as a punt. Not really wanting to do that, especially now that he's coming off the bench. Bam Adebayo, not as necessary on DK as it looks like he is on FanDuel. And that probably does it. I think Claxton is probably your go-to guy along with Olynyk at center.
All right, all strong plays today. I think that clears up the cash build quite a bit. Keith, why don't you help us take down a tournament tonight, going position by position, and then I'll take some questions. First, the RotoGrinders Discord live stream chat, followed by the YouTube chat. We have filled up the Discord tournament. So all that's left for everybody to do is make sure you're smashing that like button. Keith, who we playing in tournaments?
All right. A lot of similar names here. I think the main difference we kind of touched on already. There's just a couple of cheap guys that are popping up who I do think are more viable than they were on FanDuel. Cameron Payne, we talked about. Sam Merrill, we talked about. I do think both of those guys are fine. I think they have enough ceiling to help you in a tournament. So wouldn't shy away from them. At the point guard position, Luka, again, if he plays, I think is a phenomenal play. Awesome matchup against Indiana. Going overweight on Kyrie, just in case Luka ends up sitting. I want to be able to get as much Kyrie in my lineups as possible in that situation. Garland, I think, has a lot of upside, even in a difficult matchup. Fred VanVleet, a guy that we didn't talk about on FanDuel, just cheaper price here on DK. Love the matchup for Houston against San Antonio. If Wemby misses, San Antonio has been atrocious defensively without Wemby this season. So that's another reason that I'm kind of building some of these Houston guys in. Just again, like just targeting that because I think Wemby out would matter a ton just for the game environment, as well as the bump to the Spurs players. Kyle Lowry, I think, has a lot of upside in this matchup. Miles McBride, the minutes potential is off the charts. Again, underweight on Micic. Like, I think he's a fine play, but just want to save some of that flexibility. Underweight on Gary Trent. Talked about Cameron Payne. I think that about covers it for point guard. At shooting guard, Oubre, again, I think he's a fantastic play. I just don't love the ownership for a guy who's so scoring dependent. I think Buddy Hield is a phenomenal pivot away from him at a similar price point. Sam Merrill, a guy who you kind of need for some value. Jalen Green, a guy I'm definitely overweight on, has been shooting the ball a lot better. Another scoring dependent guy, but like don't mind the ownership on him. Again, just wanting to get into that game a little bit more. Karis LeVert off the bench, I think is totally fine. Buddy Hield, I've mentioned several times, love him as a pivot. Miles McBride. Let's see here. Some forwards. We are looking at Josh Hart, just with that minutes floor, I think is phenomenal, even though the price tag is way up. I love Wemby if he plays. Definitely want to get some exposure to him. Feel like I'm going to have enough flexibility to work things around if he does indeed get ruled out. Love Tobias Harris over here on DraftKings as well. Olynyk should have a massive role with Toronto. I think he's a solid play. Let's see here. RJ Barrett, another guy.
In for what it's worth.
Luka in. All right. So that's one of the big pieces that we're waiting on. I think that covers the forward position at center. Bam is still a great play over here. Şengün, a guy that I'm significantly over the field on. I like Claxton a good amount as well. Great matchup against Philly without Embiid. Miles Turner, a guy I'm overweight on. Dallas has struggled with centers all season long. Let's see here. I think that about does it for the center position as well.
All right, we got time to go through some questions here. Don't know what I'll give, but I'll give away something if somebody can guess who my highest owned player in my 150 set today is. A little bit different than I think I was expecting to get going in, but I like the price tag and I love the spot. Taylor, who do you think my highest played tournament player is today?
You said it's a little bit different, but you like the price tag.
It's not going to be super low owned by any means, but I can't imagine it being very many people's highest owned player. Wow, Brandon Wilcox with the first guess got it with McBride, and so that was a really nice one. Shout out Brandon Wilcox. You win a crisp virtual high five. I'm getting to 62% Miles McBride today, and that is going to be my highest owned player. Going to the RotoGrinders live stream Discord chat here. What do we got for some QQs? Is there enough value today to get up to Luka on FanDuel? Keith, what do you think?
I do think that there is. It's difficult. FanDuel has been a tighter salary cap all season long compared to DraftKings, but I do think it's viable today. The spot is just so good for Luka. Like 80 FanDuel points would not surprise anyone here.
Somebody wants to know, is there anything else we're really waiting on outside of Victor Wembanyama now? Cameron Payne, I think, would really be the only other thing of note that we are still waiting on now that we got that Luka news. The annoying thing is like, I don't know that we're for sure even going to get Cameron Payne news because he comes off the, like, I could easily see it being one of those things that it's just like, we know that he's in when he checks in for the first time. I hope that's not the case today though. But that's basically it. All we're waiting on outside of Wemby. And then they also want to know if either of you have a read on the Wemby situation today. It's a fairly close spread in the game. It's not that big. And so maybe that means Vegas is leading towards Wemby in. Keith, what do you think?
Yeah, the spread is what I was looking at. I think that kind of indicates that Wemby is playing. A lot of like consensus around the industry that I was listening to earlier today, we're kind of leaning like he was going to sit this one out, which makes sense. Like he obviously is not a guy you want to take risks with. But I do believe Vegas odds are telling us that he's in.
I think that one makes sense as well. That's kind of how I'm viewing it. FanDuel Cash, Taylor, FVV, Oubre, and Şengün, or Trent, Zion, Bam. I think that's got to be the first one.
Yeah, I agree with the first one.
FanDuel GPP, Keith, we got Claxton and Jovic, or Turner and DFS.
Jovic, not really a guy I considered today. Give me the second one there.
Agreed. DK Cash, Taylor, best point per dollar forward, 3,700 and under on DraftKings.
I assume it's going to be Wara, but let me look.
Yeah. The only one in my pool.
Yeah, it's Wara, unfortunately. I think it's fine for cash.
What do we got here next? Oh, thank you, Jay Sams. I missed that one, so thank you for bumping it back up. Joval or Wendell Carter Jr. In a, I'm assuming it's a, FanDuel single entry GPP, Keith.
I'll go Joval there. Not a guy I play often just because the minutes are so insecure. But I do like the matchup against Toronto without Pirtle.
Yeah, I agree there completely. DK GPP, Taylor, I'll throw this one to you. What are your thoughts on a Luka and Wemby lineup together? Do you think you can make it work?
You probably can. I guess you're playing Wara in that. You're playing Campaign in that. And Micic or like Champagny. It's going to be ugly, but I think it is doable.
Keith, why the love for Buddy Hield and not Kelly Oubre? Is that strictly because of ownership?
Yes, that's exactly it. I mean, I think they're they're very similar plays. Obviously, we have Oubre projected for more minutes, but I mean, he's a third of the ownership of Oubre, so that's exactly it. It's an ownership play.
Taylor, $7,900 on DraftKings, too much for Josh Hart. Are you worried about the sticker shock?
I am not. It's all about the minutes.
FanDuel GP or DK GPP. Sorry, Keith, you got Fred VanVleet or Devin Vassell?
Which site was it?
DraftKings.
Yeah, I do prefer. Yeah, I'm going to go VanVleet as long as Wemby is in. If Wemby's out, then it's a sell.
Do you think, Keith, that Alvarado or Trey Murphy are at all viable in a FanDuel tournament?
Not really. No, I
don't know his FanDuel price, but I always like taking shots on Alvarado just because he has some big ceilings in there. Even if I view him the same as TJ McConnell. He's just never priced the same way. Is Pat Connaughton starting again tonight? Brandon Wilcox wants to know. No, he is not, because the Bucks are not playing. So he will not be starting. He will probably just be hanging out on his couch, maybe having dinner with his family. Keldon Johnson or Sohan if Wemby is out, Taylor?
That is tough. I would lean Johnson, I think, for the usage, but I think both are going to be really good plays.
Keith, do you think I can play this from King F and Dash? Do you think I can play Ingram over Hart on FanDuel? And if so, do you think he can outscore Hart?
I do think that's very viable. It's an awesome matchup for Ingram against Toronto. They've really struggled on defense here since they've been shorthanded. So, yes, I think that's viable.
Even with Luka in, can you still get to Kyrie tonight in a tournament, Keith?
Yeah, absolutely. Just that matchup against Indiana is one of the best in all of basketball. So, yeah, I think it could be Kyrie.
Is PJ Washington viable as a FanDuel cash play last piece, Taylor?
Let me take a gander at that salary. 5'9", yeah, I think it's okay. Matchup's good, and the minutes are there.
What are your thoughts on Pascal Siakam tonight in a DraftKings GPP, Keith?
I think he's okay. I think the ceiling is a little bit of a concern since moving to Indiana. I do prefer Miles Turner. I had more of him before Luka was announced in. I kind of backed off my positions on those last two games a little bit. But yeah, he's viable.
And actually, I want to apologize. I brought up earlier that we're not really waiting on any news outside of Wemby and Campaign now, but Indiana still has Mathurin, Neesmith, and Ben Shepherd all ruled out. If we get one of Neesmith or Mathurin out, the other one looks pretty good. If all three of these guys are ruled out, they're going to be very, very thin on the wing, and we probably see Andrew Nembhard and even Obi Toppin kind of play as many minutes as they can handle today. Yeah, so I do think there's some interest there for me.
I'm glad you brought that up, because if all three get ruled out, I do think it's really interesting. Even one of Mathurin or Neesmith ruled out is interesting as well. quick note on their last game, TJ McConnell got some ridiculous run, even alongside of Tyrese Halliburton. We know he's a huge per minute guy. I don't hate shots on McConnell if Mathurin or Neesmith were to get rolled out.
He's been playing better than Halliburton lately.
Yeah, he really has. It's insane.
Taylor's doppelganger, TJ McConnell. But that's I feel very strongly that Phoenix, the Suns, should have tried really hard to get TJ McConnell before the trade deadline, because I feel like he would have been a perfect fit for what they're needing over there. But not the time for that. We got more QQs. FanDuel GPP, Keith, Zion or DeJounte? We got lightning round.
Give me DeJounte.
Would Obi Toppin be a better play than Nwora if the game time decisions on Indiana don't play, Taylor?
Yes, I believe so, just because they're out of forwards otherwise.
FanDuel GPP, Dante DiVincenzo or Josh Hart, Keith?
Hart.
DK Cash, Lowry or Oubre? That is definitely Oubre. FanDuel single entry, any interest in DeJounte Murray, Taylor?
Minimal. He looks fine, but not my favorite play.
What do you think about fading Kelly Oubre or Olynyk? I don't know. It's just Kelly O on a FanDuel GPP, Keith.
Yeah, I think Kelly O is the Olynyk nickname typically, so that's probably where he's leaning. I think it's okay. Like, again, it's a great role, but I don't foul trouble. It can definitely go bad. Blowout.
Chinatown informing me that Connaughton does not have a family. He's a bachelor and he frequents the bars of Milwaukee. I didn't even know there were bars in Milwaukee. I'm saying that as a guy from Saskatoon. DK, 4,900 left for a utility. Who you got, Taylor?
4,900 for utility. Let's see.
And while he looks at that, Keith, give me your top 3 FanDuel value plays not named Mitchich or Merrill.
What are we considering a value play? Under 6K or 5K even maybe?
Let's say under 5.
Under 5. Let's see here.
I'll say Dylan Brooks for that other question, by the way.
Ooh, I like that call. Give me Agbaji. I'll go Dylan Brooks also for one of my answers, and Dorian Finney-Smith.
The Wisconsiners of the chat are letting me know that I am very foolish and all there is to do in Wisconsin is drink. So apparently it is the beer capital of the United States. What do you think about Darius Garland in the GPP, Keith?
Yeah, totally fine with it. Huge ceiling without Mitchell.
Taylor, who do you think best 2 spend ups on FanDuel single entry are?
Wemby and Luka?
Siakam or DiVincenzo in a DK GPP, Keith?
DiVincenzo.
Trey Murphy or Karis LeVert, just straight up, Taylor?
LeVert.
Why are you more down on Turner if Luka is in? That was actually Pascal Siakam. If Luka, he was more down on Siakam if Luka was in. Keith, I believe that's just due to more lineup construction than everything else, correct?
Exactly. Yeah, I don't need as much flexibility now that I know that Luka is in. Nothing changed with Siakam.
Exactly. That makes sense. We got it. We have hit lock. We have reached every single question. Great show, everybody. Make sure you smash the like button on your way out, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we will be back for some more great NBA content tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you next time. On behalf of myself, Taylor, Keith, Steve behind the scenes, and the whole RG crew, peace out.